Part 1. What if you already knew you would win? If you knew for sure that everything would be okay, how would you behave today if I told you there's nothing to worry about, nothing to fear, everything you desire will come? Would you still hesitate? You would step out of the house with steadier eyes, say what you want to say, do what you want to do. You wouldn't ask anyone's permission to live authentically because you already know how it ends. The interesting part is people who live like that are usually the ones who actually get it. That's not magic. It's a way of life, precisely what Stoicism has been teaching for over 2,000 years. One winter day, I had a strange conversation with a friend, Mike, a talented designer who spent years only taking odd jobs. He told me, I want to go full freelance, build my own studio. But you know what I'm scared of? I'm scared of failing. I'm scared I'm not good enough. Asked him back, suppose you knew for certain you would succeed. Would you start? He went silent, then smiled. If I knew for sure, I'd start right away. And I said, then act now as if you already knew. Because that certainty, no one gives it to us. We have to choose it for ourselves. That's the beginning. A month later, Mike wrote the first line on his website. I'm a creative specialist for personal branding. He didn't wait for recognition. He didn't wait for anyone to ask. He wrote as if it were already true, and from that day on, everything changed. Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it. And what I've seen from Mike, from myself, from the people I've coached is this. The first reaction is the choice of how you define yourself. You can choose to define yourself as someone waiting for an opportunity or someone building something great. You can choose to be a victim or a creator. You can wait for inspiration before acting or act as if you already have every reason to believe. And when you do the latter, your brain starts operating differently. It activates the reticular activating system, RS, to seek out opportunities, allies, solutions, because you're sending it the signal, I'm ready. In Eastern culture, there's a saying, if you want to sit in the shade and enjoy success, you must first walk like a future king. Behavior is not an outcome, it's a cause. You don't walk confidently because you're successful. You become successful because you started walking confidently. Think about it. If you knew for sure that in 6 months you'd land your dream job, would you still worry about every email you send? If you knew the person you secretly liked would choose you, would you still hesitate to ask them for coffee? If you knew the world would listen to your voice, would you still tremble sharing your opinion? You see, the problem has never been ability. The problem is the doubt that stopped you from ever beginning. But a Stoic doesn't live with the mindset of wait until certainty to proceed. They live as if failure is part of the victory. They live as if failure doesn't make them lesser, but stronger if they stay steady. You don't need to wait until you have it all to begin. You only need one thing, the decision to act as if everything you need is already within you. Because the truth is, it is. You just haven't practiced enough to see it clearly. The question I want to leave you with today is, if today were the first day you lived as someone who knew they would win, what would you do differently? Start with that. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for perfection. Act as if you've already chosen win. Because truthfully, you're choosing it right now. Part 2, choose the right environment. You can't bloom on barren soil. There's a harsh truth. You need to understand early in your self-development journey, you can't bloom if you constantly live in an environment that withers you. And the harsher truth is, you might be so used to that environment that you think it's normal. I once mentored a girl named Lynn, smart, hardworking, dreaming of becoming a published author. But for 3 whole years, she couldn't write a single chapter. Not because of lack of time, but because every time she sat down to write, voices would echo around the dinner table. Who reads books these days? In Vietnam, can you even make a living writing? Stop dreaming, child. The scary part isn't the words, it's that she started to believe them. That belief seeped into her every action. Gradually, she stopped writing, stopped dreaming, stopped calling herself a writer. A negative environment doesn't just limit you with words, it slams shut the door to your imagination before you even knock. Epictetus once said, "You become what you constantly look at." That's why Stoicism urges us to be intentional about what we allow into our minds. If every day you live in a place where dreams are mocked, where people fear failure, fear judgment, fear even themselves, then you might be a gem buried in the mud without realizing it. Like a lotus seed dropped on dry stone, it doesn't sprout not because it's flawed, but because it's never been in the right place. So I asked Lynn, "You used to write great blog posts. Why did you stop?" She answered, "Because no one supported me." I asked again, "Have you ever sat with other writers?" She shook her head. I told her to try joining a small group, people who were also writing books. They weren't famous, but they believed in words, in storytelling, in quiet dreams. And like magic, after just 3 months, Lynn sent me her first draft, 120 pages. Not because her talent changed, but because her environment did. And that changed her belief. From belief, action followed. You can't sail the open sea if you stay in the village pond. You can't think big if you're surrounded by people who keep telling you to stay humble. You can't become your highest version if you live among those content with their lowest. Look at successful people, from Kobe Bryant to Elon Musk, from Taylor Swift to Steve Jobs. They all share one habit. They choose carefully who gets to enter their energy field. Not because they're arrogant, but because they understand. Greatness is a flame easily extinguished if you stand in a rainstorm of doubt. In Eastern culture, the old wisdom says, choose your friends wisely, choose your teachers carefully. But today, friends are not just the people you meet in person. They're the ones you follow, the podcasts you listen to, the videos you watch each night. They're all pouring something in your mind. The question is it helping you grow or shrink? There's an interesting fact about the brain. The RAS, reticular activating system, filters information based on the beliefs you're frequently exposed to. If you live in a place where earning 10 kalash a month is considered extraordinary, you'll assume that's the ceiling. But if you're around people earning 10 a week, your brain starts to realize, oh, this can be learned. This can be trained. And suddenly your old limits start to crumble. You don't have to cut off people you care about, but you do need to learn to measure their influence. Who do you listen to with your whole heart? Who should just be a polite greeting? Abundant thinkers don't live in isolation, but they're intentional about who they allow into their minds. Because they know if you let a skeptic plant a seed of fear in you, every day, sooner or later, you'll grow into a crooked tree, constantly doubting yourself. The world doesn't need you to be snobby, but it does need you to protect your inner space like a sacred temple. The question I want to leave you with today is, are you trying to bloom on a patch of land that's already run dry? If so, maybe it's time to change the pot. And if you haven't found the environment you dream of, start building it bit by bit. Because one day you will become the fertile ground others long to belong to. Part 3, see yourself through the eyes of someone who deserves to be seen. Have you ever noticed, two people with the same skills, same background, same starting point, but one walks into the room with a presence that draws every eye, while the other seems to disappear into the background? The issue isn't appearance, luck, or natural charisma. The issue lies in how they saw themselves before walking into that room. I once witnessed an unforgettable moment during a casting for a TV show. Two girls, one with years of acting experience, trained professionally for 4 years. The other, a complete outsider, never formally trained. The first girl walked in, voice trembling, eyes dodging contact, presenting her skills methodically, but without fire. The second girl walked in with bright eyes, sincere words, not much technique, but belief in herself. And you know what happened? The second girl was chosen. As the director said, I didn't see her acting. I saw her being herself and believing in it. That's the power of self-image. What you believe about yourself shapes how you walk, talk, choose, and react. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind. Don't surrender it by seeing yourself through someone else's eyes." Someone who sees themselves as just learning behaves like a student, always waiting for approval. Someone who sees themselves as building something meaningful acts like a leader, even without recognition. The difference doesn't lie in reality. It lies in the silent inner declaration. In Eastern philosophy, there's a saying, appearance flows from the mind and the world shifts with the heart, which means your face, your posture, your voice, they all begin within. If inside you believe, I'm not enough, you'll speak softer. You'll shrink your shoulders. You'll ask permission at every step. And the world, which only reads, your signals will respond. Accordingly, it will doubt you, underestimate you, overlook you. But if you stand with the mindset, I'm not perfect, but I'm building something valuable, you will lift your chin, you will straighten your back, you will speak with the tone of someone who has chosen themselves. And miraculously, the world will begin to believe it, just as if you were teaching it how to believe. I once had a phase where I kept comparing myself to those ahead of me. I saw myself as slower, lesser, and instead of acting, I paused to improve myself, which in reality was just procrastination, born from feeling inadequate. Until one day I read a passage from Epictetus's discourses. We are not disturbed by things, but by our view of them. And I realized I don't need to wait until I'm good enough to act. I need to act like someone on the path to becoming great, and that's enough. I started changing the smaller things, how I signed up for events, how I introduced myself, how I wrote my LinkedIn bio. No more. I'm trying to, but instead, I help others build mental resilience through life, philosophy, not to boast, but to take responsibility for the identity I was shaping. You don't have to lie about who you are, but you do have to stop repeating a limited version of yourself. Here's a little trick I tried that had immediate results. Spend 5 minutes each morning writing one identity statement, not who you are today, but who you are choosing to become. Write it as if it's already true, already alive in you, just waiting to grow. For example, I am someone who lives with purpose and discipline, or I build long-term value for others. At first, it may sound odd, but after a few days, your behaviors start flowing from that new belief. Because what you tell yourselves repeatedly becomes the map your subconscious follows. The question I want to leave you with today is, if you were the version of yourself you admire, the higher version of you, how would you walk? What would you write in your personal profile? What would you say in your first conversation of the day? Choose that and act as if you already carry them in your veins. Because truthfully, you do. You just need to see yourself through the eyes of someone who deserves to be seen. And that's the beginning of every transformation. Part 4, play the lead role in your life. Even before there's an audience, imagine a grand stage. The spotlight isn't on. The audience hasn't arrived. The curtains are still drawn. But backstage, there's someone rehearsing every step, every breath, every line, as if the show were about to begin. That person is an actor. Not because anyone gave them title, but because they chose to step into the role, even before anyone recognized who they were. That's what I learned from Stoicism. You don't need someone to crown you with a title. You need to act as if you are already that person. There was a time I spoke with a friend named Dewey, a young photographer wanting to build his personal brand. He told me, I'll start posting. Once I have a better camera, better clients, more free time. I asked him one question. So if I never give you that better camera, would you dare to shoot with your phone as if you were already a professional photographer? He smiled, didn't answer. 3 weeks later, I saw Dewey post his first photo shot on a phone. Caption, don't wait to have enough. Start as if you already do. That very day, he began living as the person he wanted to become. And the amazing part, people didn't respond because of the photo's quality, but because of the genuine energy of someone brave enough to begin. Lady Gaga once performed in empty bars with no audience, but she wore outfits like she was on stage at Madison Square Garden. She sang with fire in her eyes as if the whole country were watching live. Because in her mind, the audience was already there. The victory had already arrived, it just hadn't appeared yet. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you can live nobly right now. Begin, don't wait for applause. Don't wait for a big enough stage. Because the Stoic knows victory isn't a title, it's a decision. You could wait until you have a certificate to call yourself a coach. Or you could start writing posts, helping others, researching deeply, and act like someone responsible for others' growth. That's not pretending. That's practicing your future self every day. Like an athlete who hasn't won a championship but already eats, trains, and rests like a champion. Like a musician who's not yet famous but writes music as if millions are waiting to hear it. Like a Japanese monk who folds his robe carefully each night, even though no one sees, because it's how he practices presence without needing a stage. In Eastern culture, there's a beautiful saying, be a master in your heart and people will come, even without a signboard. And I deeply believe that. People don't believe in you because of flashy titles. They believe in you because of the energy you radiate when you live fully in what you believe. When you start acting as if you're already the lead role in your life, the world begins to adjust its own lens. It starts pointing the camera at you, listening to you, trusting you. Not because you're perfect, but because you've chosen to live authentically. I know you may still have questions. What if I fail? What if people don't believe in me? The answer is they don't need to believe yet. You need to believe first. And if you're willing to stand up, take action, rehearse your role daily, sooner or later that role becomes your identity. Epictetus once said, you become what you consistently do. So don't say who you are, act like that person. The question I want to leave you with today is, if no one cheered for you, no one liked your post, no one validated your effort, would you still live like the person you chose to become? If the answer is yes, then you've already begun to win. No audience needed. No applause required. Just you stepping onto the stage of your own life, living as if you were born to stand there. Part 5. Body language is a wordless spell. Before you say a single word, the world has already read your message. Not from your mouth, but from your shoulders, your walk, your gaze, your hands, the way you enter a room like someone invisible or someone with something worth saying. And the astonishing thing is, you're reading yourself the same way every day. Body language doesn't just affect how others treat you. It sends a signal back to your brain. Who am I? In this very moment, in 2012, psychologist Amy Cuddy conducted a famous experiment at Harvard. She asked students to stand in power poses, back straight, arms wide, chin up, for just 2 minutes. Result, confidence hormones increased. Anxiety hormones decreased. They entered interviews with completely different energy. And this isn't just a psychological trick. It's the body's self-programming mechanism. Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Epictetus once said, "No one is free unless they master themselves." And mastering yourself begins with the most visible thing, your body. Think back to the last time you felt awful. Did you notice your shoulders sagging, your eyes down, your voice shrinking? Now think of them opposite. When you achieved something big, when you helped someone, when you looked in the mirror and truly saw yourself. What was your body like? Bam, straight, chest open, steady gaze, right? The problem is most of us wait for the feeling to change the body. But Stoics do the opposite. They change the body first, then let the emotions follow. I experienced this firsthand during my first major talk. Hundreds in the audience. My heart was pounding like a drum. I thought about stepping back. But in that moment, I remembered a mentor's advice. When you're scared, step forward. When you're shaking, stand taller. When you want to avoid, look straight ahead. So I did exactly that. And miraculously, my body began signaling my brain, all is well. I'm in control. And from there, spoke. Not perfectly, but clearly, confidently, in rhythm. In Eastern martial arts, there's a concept called the centered stance. You stand firm, eyes open, breath slow, the body relaxed, but ready. It's not just a fighting posture, it's a way of living. Because your body is always making a declaration, who you are, where you're headed. And that posture will echo back, teaching your mind to believe in what it displays. So if you feel unmotivated, try something simple. Stand up walk with the stride of someone who's ready. No one needs to know you're training, but you know, and that's enough. If you're anxious, adjust your breathing. Inhale deeply through your nose. Exhale slowly through your mouth, eyes forward. If you're doubting yourself, write down 3 things you've overcome. Then sit upright and read aloud. I'm building something meaningful. This isn't about pretending. It's about sending a new signal to your nervous system. Every time you lift your head, every time you don't slouch, every time you refuse to shrink, you're telling the world and yourself, I am not my fear. I am someone learning to move through it. A Japanese Zen master once said, the way you hold a teacup says more than 1,000 words about who you are. You can't walk with your head down and expect your mind to rise. You can't curl up your body and hope your spirit will expand. The question I want to leave you with today is your body, your posture, the way you look at others, the way you enter a room. What story is it telling? Is it still telling the story of an old version you've already outgrown? Or is it reflecting the person you've chosen to become? If not, adjust it right now. No one has to see, because the most important observer is you. Part 6, your inner voice, the silent coach that determines your outcome. There's a voice that follows you everywhere. It doesn't need a phone to contact you, doesn't need anyone to activate it, never goes silent, never leaves your side, not for a second. That voice is your inner dialogue, and it is the quiet but powerful coach that shapes your entire mental world. The scary thing is, most of us let it speak freely, untrained, unchallenged, unquestioned. One of my former students, Mai, once said something I'll never forget. It feels like someone in my head is always trying to paint black over every effort. I asked, have you ever talked back to it? She shook her head. Like many of us, she believed the voice in her head was truth. But it's not. It's just a repeated language, habit, so frequent that you can't tell where you end and the old programming begins. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, your life is what your thoughts make. This isn't just abstract philosophy. It's what neuroscience today calls neuroplasticity. Your Brain doesn't distinguish between real or false words. It simply records what you repeat enough, which means every time you sigh and say to yourself, I'm so dumb, I'll never be good at this, don't deserve it, you're training your brain to accept that as truth. You could attend all the self-help seminars, read countless books, watch endless inspiring videos. But if, when you go home, you still curse yourself every time you slip, then all external progress gets undone from within. On the other hand, if you learn to speak to yourself like a dedicated coach, you turn your mind into fertile ground where any seed can grow. Imagine you're a child just learning to walk. You take a few steps, then fall. And someone, you, shouts, useless, you'll never learn. What do you think happens? But if that voice changes, that's okay. You took 3 steps, great job. Let's try again. The child slowly gains confidence. And the same is true for you, whether you're 25, 35, or 55. You still need a voice that knows how to cheer at the right time. Be firm in the right way and believe, even when you don't yet believe in yourself. One small tactic I used every time I messed up, instead of insulting myself, I replaced it with this question. What is this trying to teach me? Or how would I respond if this happened to my best friend? And each time the emotion shifted. Instead of shame, I felt curiosity. Instead of being crushed by my inner voice, I started steering the narrative. In Eastern culture, there's an old saying, words are either medicine or poison, depending on how they're used. And if those words come from you, their dosage is even more powerful. So today, I'm not asking you to blindly love yourself. I'm not telling you to scream affirmations all day. I'm only asking one thing. Start talking to yourself the way you would to someone you deeply care about. When tired, don't say, I'm so weak. Say, I've tried hard today. Resting now means moving forward tomorrow. When failing, don't say, I'm a loser. Say, I had the courage to try. Now I have the strength to learn. When rejected, don't say, everyone's better than me. Say, this time didn't work, but I'm getting stronger. This kind of voice doesn't make you soft. It lets you keep moving without losing self-respect. Epictetus once taught, your mind will become what you shape it to be. So you can either let it be your enemy or your most loyal companion. And the question I want to leave with you today is, if you recorded your inner voice for a week, would you have the courage to listen back? If not, it's time to change the rhythm. One sentence at a time, one word, one low moment, one near give up moment. Do what a Stoic would do. Change the perspective. Then change the language. Then act as if you're someone who knows how to rise. Because you truly are that person. You just need to stop speaking to yourself like you're not worthy. Part 7, pay the price before the prize. Discipline is loving yourself seriously. Most people want the result, but they don't want the cost. They want health, but won't give up sugar. They want a successful career, but won't give up sleep at 5 a.m. They want freedom, but still cling to old habits like a worn-out blanket. But the truth is, every reward you long for comes with an invoice. And someone who lives with Stoic spirit doesn't wait for the invoice to arrive to decide whether to pay them. They pay up front every day. I remember once on a trip to Japan, I saw an old man waking up at 4 a.m. practicing wooden sword, drills alone in the cold mist. No camera, no audience, no applause. I asked a local about him. They said he used to be a national kendo coach, now retired, but he still trains every morning just like he has for the last 40 years. I went quiet, thinking of myself, how many mornings I snooze the alarm because I can do it later. How many chances I let slip by because I'm not ready yet. And there he was, living by the highest standard, even when no one demanded it anymore. That's when I realized discipline is not punishment. It's the behavior of someone who knows they're worthy of something great. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is hard to endure becomes precious once overcome. And in every small action, waking up on time, working out when you don't feel like it, reading instead of scrolling, you're quietly paying in advance for the version of yourself you dream of becoming." No one sees you at 5 a.m. No one sees you saying no to fun so you can finish your work. No one sees you skip the dessert because you're reducing sugar. But you see it, and that knowing is your capital. Like an athlete not yet on the podium, but who eats, trains, and sleeps like a champion. They're not pretending. They're living as if victory is already there, just waiting for their body and mind to catch up. I once asked myself, if I were already successful, how would I live? And from that moment, I started adjusting. Not waiting until I hit 10,000 subscribers to make serious videos. I made them like 100,000 people were already waiting today. Not waiting for big clients to write professional emails. I wrote them as if I were emailing the CEO I wanted to work with. And magically, the things I thought were pretend gradually became my nature, because the brain doesn't distinguish real from imagined, only responds to intentional repetition. That's how you build habits. That's how you pay bit by bit every day for the prize to come. In Eastern culture, there's a saying, rushing brings no gain. Great achievements begin with small accumulation. Disciplined people aren't cold-hearted. They just know the value of every second, every action, every choice. They don't live on impulse because they understand every small behavior today is a brick building the identity of tomorrow. And discipline is long-term love for yourself. The question I want to leave you today is, if you were already the person you long to become, what time would you wake up? What would you eat? What would you say to yourself this morning? Start living as if you are that person already. Because action doesn't wait for inspiration. Action is what creates the person. And the reward doesn't come after your complaints. It comes after your patience, after you've paid with every bounced second, every silent morning, every unseen effort, because you believe you are worth it. Part 8, don't ask for permission to be yourself. Judgment can't be your chain. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you not dared to post something because you feared criticism? How many times have you swallowed your word because someone glanced your way? How many bold ideas have you shelved because of a whisper in your head? What if they laugh? If you've ever felt this, you're not alone. Judgment is one of the most powerful invisible chains that imprisons the soul's yearning to live fully. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And it's that whisper that's dangerous because it strikes at the most primal human fear, the fear of being excluded, misunderstood, not belonging. I remember the story of a friend named Han. She had dreamed of starting a cooking YouTube channel since she was 25. But by 30, she still hadn't uploaded a single video. Not because she lacked skill, not because she didn't have time, but because she hated her own voice. Every time she recorded, then listened back, she thought, sounds so weird. People will definitely laugh. She wasn't afraid of the audience. She was afraid of herself. For 5 years, every time she wanted to act, she treated the gaze of others as a knife. And so her dream stayed frozen in fear. Until one day, after a long talk, she changed just one question. If I don't post the video, what do people even have to laugh at? The answer was nothing. And that's what's truly scary. People don't laugh because you're bad. People don't laugh because you're imperfect. They laugh because you dared to be different. And if you don't act, if you live your life just to please the crowd, then you're no longer yourself. You're just a warped reflection of other people's expectations. Epictetus once said, if you want to be excellent, you must be willing to look foolish at first. Because the first cost of growth isn't knowledge. It isn't results. It's the courage to look awkward in front of people who aren't brave enough to change themselves. In Eastern philosophy, there's an old teaching. What others think of you, that's their karma. But living true to your nature, that is yours. And that sentence has saved me more times than I can count. I've had shaky hands posting my first article. I've wanted to delete my first video because someone laughed. I've hesitated to launch my first coaching program after one sarcastic comment. But then I realized you'll never escape judgment. So better to let them judge the real you. You can fake your way through life, live how they want, live how they think is safe, live like a half shadow, and one day look in the mirror and not recognize who's looking back. Or you can live as yourself. Even if misunderstood, criticized, or opposed, you'll still have you. And there's no greater reward than that. I once heard a teacher say, freedom begins the moment you stop asking for permission. Stop asking to be different. Stop asking to fail. Stop asking to outgrow the box someone put you in. Stoics don't live for applause. They live in accordance with what they believe, even if the stadium is empty. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Others can insult you, but only you decide whether that injures you." And from that, I understood other people's eyes can't destroy you unless you trust them more than your own voice. So the question I want to leave with you today is, who are you living to avoid upsetting? And what are you giving up of yourself in return? If the answer is your truth, your identity, your dream, your uniqueness, then maybe you're paying far too high a price. Stop. Start doing what you want to do. Even if your voice trembles, even if the video's rough, even if the content's a little raw. Because freedom isn't where there's no judgment, it's where you're no longer controlled by it. Part 9, challenges don't break you. They reveal who you can become. Have you ever wondered, why do difficulties always show up, right? When you're trying to do something big, why is it that when you finally start working hard, you get sick? When you begin to believe in yourself, you get rejected. When you step outside your comfort zone, life throws a bucket of cold water at you. You might think it's bad, luck or fate playing tricks, but Stoic philosophy teaches something different. Challenges don't come to stop you. They come to confirm you're on the right path. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I once ran a marathon in lat. The first 21 kilometers were easy, cool, weather, flat roads. I thought, maybe I'm better than I thought. But by kilometer 30, I cut the hills began. Steep inclines, blazing sun, cramps in my calves. And all I could think was I could stop. No one's forcing me. No one will judge. I could just go back. But just then I saw an older man ahead, silver hair, small frame, still, striding steadily. I caught up to him and asked, "Why aren't you stopping?" He simply smiled. "Because this is the part that turns you into a real runner." And I understood hardship isn't the exception to the journey. It's the core of it. No one grows through ease. No one finds their true limits during smooth sailing. At the very point where you want to give up, that's where your old self breaks down and your new self begins to take shape. Epictetus called this training the mind. Stoics don't wish for hardship, but when it comes, they welcome it as part of the practice. Where others see pain, they see endurance. Where others see failure, they see a lesson. Where others feel shame, they see a chance to let go of ego. And because of that, they become more resilient, not because they're stronger, but because they use pain to grow. In Eastern culture, there's a saying, "If fire tests gold, hardship tests strength." And I would add, hardship doesn't just test you, it builds you. Look back at your life. The things that made you stronger never came from comfort. Maybe it was a betrayal that taught you to value yourself. Maybe it was a layoff that taught you independence. Maybe it was a breakdown that taught you you're tougher than you thought. Challenges are never random. They're blueprints sent to pull you out of your shell. And only when you accept them, not avoid them, do they reveal their value. I once asked a successful entrepreneur, what was the moment that made you grow the most? He didn't mention raising capital. He didn't mention awards. He told me about the time he was falsely accused by an employee, crushed by media backlash, abandoned by friends. He nearly had a breakdown. But from that, he learned three things: emotional discipline, steadfastness in silence, and the art of not reacting by instinct. No one taught him that in books. Life taught him by throwing him into the fire. And it was that fire that forged him like steel. The question I want to leave you with today is, the thing you're avoiding, could it be the very thing sent to lift you higher? Could the fear of failure, judgment of getting lost, be the exact test you need to become the version you dream of? If the answer is yes, then stop running. Face it. Step forward. And say, like a true Stoic, this is part of the journey. And I am ready to be forged. Part by 10. Act as if you are that person. Every single day I used to think change was a grand event, that it had to come from an awakening, a life-altering crisis, a moment that shook you out of your own skin. But after living long enough, reading deeply enough, and meeting enough people who've truly transformed, I've realized change doesn't come from a special day. It comes from a string of very ordinary days where you quietly choose to live differently. You don't become a disciplined person overnight, but you can act like one starting tomorrow morning. You don't become peaceful with one phrase, but you can choose to respond like a peaceful person next time you get angry. And with every choice like that, you're no longer trying to become that person, you are that person. Epictetus once said, don't pride yourself on knowing what should be done. Take pride in doing it. Knowledge doesn't change you. Action does. And the most important actions are your repeated daily behaviors. If you want to become a writer, you don't need a publisher yet. Write today as if you're preparing for your first book launch. If you want to be healthy, don't wait for a fancy gym or a personal trainer. Eat your next meal as if you're fueling an Olympic athlete. If you want to live free of self-doubt, walk out of the house this afternoon as if you're already living in your most grounded self. No one but you can give yourself that title. Only you can declare it through your actions. In Eastern philosophy, there's a Zen principle called behavior creates the mind. Act like someone kind and you become kind. Act like someone confident and your mind strengthens. Act like someone who knows their path and the universe starts aligning to support you. And this isn't superstition, it's neuroscience. Your brain doesn't distinguish clearly between real and imagined if you rehearse it with intention. When you act as if you already have it, your brain builds new belief, networks, creates new hormones, adjusts into new states. And one day you'll wake up, realize you're no longer playing a role, you've become it. But to reach that day, you have to then begin today. No need to wait for recognition. No need for motivation. No need for a perfect setup. All you need is you with your steady, intentional, persistent choice. Act like someone with purpose. Act like someone building lasting value. Act like someone who will no longer abandon themselves again. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, stop discussing what a good person should be one. And that's the most beautiful closing I can offer you. My final question isn't, are you ready enough? It's, if you were already the person you admire, what would you do right now? So don't wait. Stand up, act, repeat, and live as if you've already won. Because truthfully, you've already started. And that's enough. Closing words. In short, you don't need to wait until you're good enough to begin. You don't need to be fully ready to take the first step. You don't need all the conditions to be right before living like someone who matters. What you need is just one decision. To live as if you've already won. Not to pretend, but to train yourself daily to build your resilience, to become the living embodiment of the person you're meant to be. Because true victory doesn't happen the moment you receive something. It happens the moment you choose to live in alignment with it beforehand. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste time debating what a good person is. Be one." And today, if you hold on to one thing in your heart, once let it be this: I am living like someone who has already won, because the world doesn't respond to promises. It responds to action.